So thank you for attending the presentation on moving from managing assets to asset management. While every city is unique in their own way, there's two common priorities that include delivering excellent services and providing a superior quality of life. At CityWorks, we strive to empower your city with the necessary tools to develop a robust decision-making process. While many cities have done a great job of managing their assets by instituting routine preventative maintenance techniques such as condition assessments, inspections, and tackling some troubled areas via capital improvement projects, many are now moving towards asset management. The city of El Paso, as the 19th largest U.S. city, is very similar. They're responsible for over 270,000 linear feet, or roughly 51 miles of pavement sections. And they do this with 9 specialized crews. So as they start to migrate from managing assets to asset management, at CityWorks, we're able to provide the ArcGIS Pro, Insights for ArcGIS, and CityWorks Insights services to help them align with best practices in asset management. Here is ArcGIS Pro, and as you can see with its space-time cube, you can now load all your information from the work order costs into ArcGIS Pro and start really diving and comparing your information from where you've invested in your community over your time lapse. For example, here at El Paso, we can now say that over the past 12 years, you can tell where the hot spots, aka where the majority of investment has gone into, and also where some cold spots have developed with the blue and the gray, where you've decreased some of your investment. Additionally, on the left card, you can actually see how we've loaded condition data. In this case, for pavement assets, we've actually added the PCI, and you can start now diving into more information of, okay, I know I have my investment on the right-hand side, I've got my condition on the left, and I can actually start comparing, contrasting, and seeing what data lies and whether there's any relationship between the two. So here in ArcGIS, in Insights for ArcGIS, I can actually now also show that information over the past 12 years that the city of El Paso has actually invested over $212 million, of which almost $90 million of that is in the pavement sections. I can continue to splice and dice that information as much as I need to really start creating the business cases and supporting them. But more importantly, as many organizations have gone through this, say one day your management team comes in and says, okay, well now for the next cycle, capital improvement cycle, I'm going to need more data-based, risk-based analysis to really support the next wave of investment and where that goes. So from an operational standpoint, I can now say, hey, I know I have CityWorks and I can mine the data from service requests, work orders, inspections, but now with the CityWorks Insights app, I can actually dive even more by introducing risk and really getting to align that with best practices, but look at my data and my information in a new manner. So I keep saying managing assets to asset management and the transition that's occurred. Well, from the time that cities have really become the stewards of assets, we've done a great job of managing our assets. And we've gone about it through an asset-centric standpoint. That means we've been very short-term planning, and we've only looked at the upfront capital costs. So not everything, but just the upfront capital cost, low bid. And we've been functioning in a reactive mode. So an asset fails, and then we try to figure out how we're going to replace that asset. And it's all been through the lens of condition-based analysis. Well, in alignment with ISO 55000, now we transition towards asset management, which takes a more service-centric approach, looks at the long-term planning, as communities should, and at the whole life cycle cost, not just upfront. And now we're being more strategic about our investment and where our next wave is going to be. So we do all of this through risk-based analysis. We no longer just look at the condition of the asset, but we also pair it with what would be the impact of that asset failing, what would be the events of that. And so this now is asset management. So I keep talking about risk, and so let's give a standard definition of what risk really is. So it's made up of two components: the probability of failure times the consequence of failure. So the probability of failure is the likelihood of that asset failing in a given period, and that could be a percentage or a decimal. The consequence of failure is the actual events that would occur if that asset were to fail. And so that could be from a service interruption consequence, it could be environmentally, financially, reputationally. And then now that I have my POF and my COF, I can multiply the two and develop my business risk exposure. So now through the CityWorks Insight app, each individual organization can develop their own asset strategy. So in this case, we have a pavement data loaded, and I want to do this for probability of failure. I can do it for consequence of failure, but I have my risk factors that I develop. I have my factor ratings that are pulling straight from your GIS fields in your data, and I give it a corresponding rating score. And this is going to factor into the overall formula in calculation. So just as I've developed my asset strategy, I've also have to develop my maintenance strategy. And so with this, it's made up of two different components, proactive and reactive. Proactive, you do condition assessments, you do other PM strategies such as crack sealing and microsurfacing. So condition assessments, I can say for a time interval, I may do that every 3 years. And so here's the corresponding weight to it. Likewise, for my crack sealing and my microsurfacing, I can give it a time interval and a weight, and it'll all factor in. So now that I've actually have my asset and maintenance strategy set, I can now calculate that through my analytics dashboard. So now I can show the POF, the COF, and the BRE for each individual asset. Through this, I can now concentrate on the 55 assets in this case that have such high risk scores. And so I can start now diving in and saying, hey, so for my high risk assets, is it due to under or over maintaining my assets? And I can view that and start seeing what impact my different strategies or techniques have really come into play. But more importantly now, I can actually dive even deeper by taking all these calculations that I've done of risk. As you can see here, it comes down to the individual asset, and I can actually export that out into an EUR. This will provide me the opportunity to dive even deeper through other Esri tools to really leverage the full platform of Esri and CityWorks and dive into it more from a risk-based analysis. So here's that URL exported into ArcGIS Pro. As you can see, it's great. I have that information here, and that really correct. So you have these tiles that represent all the different BRE scores and risk scores, but it's not helping you tell the story that you need to tell your management team. But I've uploaded it here, and now I can actually consume it in other platforms such as Insights for ArcGIS. So here, you can actually notice now that I've loaded my information, both condition and BRE, into Insights for ArcGIS. I've got that information. I'm actually going to take my BRE score, dump it into the card itself, and start diving more into that information. So from there, I can actually start playing with the symbology and looking at whether I need to make it more transparent, anything that really makes it more accessible and easy to view for the user and to really help me state my case. So from here, I've developed a heat map. As you can see, it's pretty daunting. There's a lot of information there. It's going to be hard to really start telling that to management in a way that states my case. But now, I can also, so I've got my condition, I've got my BRE, and I could say, hey, I need a filter for the information for any assets that are in poor condition. So that means in this case, for pavement, it's a 40 and below, and I want all the assets that have a BRE of 15 and above. That means high risk. So I've got poor condition and high risk assets, and I want to see that in my map. So now that I've actually filtered for those, you can note that I can start seeing some of those troubled areas. That's reduced the map and made it more simplistic to really view and state to our management team. As I dive more into these troubled areas, I can start addressing whether I have confirmed my maintenance strategy or my asset strategy. For example, it may be high risk because lo and behold, it's actually near an elementary school. So if the pavement fails around there, there's going to have high complications or consequences to vehicular pedestrian mobility in those areas. I can now start seeing that there's some areas of that location where you have better pavement than others, and I can start addressing the troubled areas by saying, do I need to do a change order in my current project that I can address next quarter, or do I need to start developing a capital improvement project in next year's cycle? And that's how I can start to mitigate any of these high risks. So this is just another way that CityWorks and Esri tools can really come together to help you leverage your systems, your data, and really help you align more with asset management best practices. More importantly, it can help you determine where the next investment is in a more strategic manner by telling you the right, delivering the services and the necessary financial budgets at the right place and at the right time. Thank you.